Alrighty, we're back. Your favorite podcast show of every single week. This is Location Weekly, and we're recording live on April the 20th. This is episode number 513. Aubriana, how are you?
I'm hanging in there, doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are you?
All right. We're there's hope on the horizon. They just announced that people 40 and over now can get vaccines here. So I'm closer to that 50 range, but that means I'm in the group. So yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah,
That's up for sure.
yeah. So
Hope is good. Yay,
hope is
Canada.
good. And on the baseball front, my Blue Jays, they're hanging in there. They're doing okay. But we still haven't seen George Springer play a single game yet. After all that money we spent. So we're just waiting for him to make his debut. Hopefully next week. So we'll see.
TBD, right? We'll
Yeah.
see.
So, all right. Well, we've got a good show for you. Four stories as per usual. And I'll let Aubriana kick us off with an interesting one.
Yeah, this is an interesting announcement that's out. Dollar Tree, yes, the place you love to give your kids $5 to go crazy in, is getting into the retail media business. So this is super interesting, right? They've debuted what they're calling their Chesapeake Media Group. So this retail media network, it is up. They're describing it as a platform for brands to engage with shoppers through this tailored and targeted digital experience. So they are doing this through collaborations with Aki Technologies, it's AKI, and Swiftly. And they're kind of touting this as like this is the ability for CPG labels to have this fully managed service, get ad placements on Dollar Tree app, Family Dollar website, Family Dollar mobile app. And so, they're saying you can obviously reach millions of families across, it says across America, but it's interesting because I know they have stores in Canada as well. And they can, there's a variety of digital options here. So they've got sponsored searches, targeted content, merchandise suggestions, dynamic ad placements. They're touting some closed loop reporting, full funnel solutions, lots of like buzzwords here. And, they've got Dollar Tree obviously has about 15,000 locations through 48 states here in the US and 5 provinces in Canada. So they definitely have a good footprint and reach. And it's interesting because something else that was noted in this story was that Walmart recently debuted, this extended purview and brand for its media business, which was Walmart Media Group. We've talked about them before, and now it's called Walmart Connect. So it's like more and more retailers are trying to figure out what they can do with their digital footprint, and how they can kind of leverage that real estate that they have there and different online placements that they have available. So to me, this is interesting. When I think of like Family Dollar or Dollar Tree, I don't typically think of anything that is a name brand. So typically they'll probably be putting placements for CPG brands that perhaps aren't sold in their stores. That to me is a little fuzzy and a little confusing. But I can always see that I think there is the ability of retailers to take advantage not only of their physical real estate, right? How can they use that to reach more consumers, but also their digital real estate as well. I don't imagine that they have a ton of website traffic, but I could be completely wrong. To me, this seems like a very, interesting fit because yes, lots of people shop on Walmart.com, but I'm not sure that so many people shop on Dollar Tree or FamilyDollar.com. So I don't know. It's an interesting kind of announcement for me, but we'll see how it goes. I could see them offering up things maybe like on a supply side, but the media formation of a media network, it's it's a little surprising. I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I'm not so surprised. I mean, because I think there's a general movement, for large retail brands that have lots of locations, thousands of locations. In this case, 15,000 plus. Try to find new revenue streams, right? Beyond sort of just, the goods that you can buy in their stores, right? So You mentioned Walmart, Walgreens and CVS and all these guys, are also sort of creating media networks and getting into, that type of business. And I think, I think there's an opportunity there for the CPGs, to sort of leverage, that real estate and find ways to engage with that audience. And I think, while the online part of this, is like is the part I question in terms of, how many people are shopping, at Dollar Tree online. I don't have a clue. I can tell you here, the Dollar Tree stores that are here in my neighborhood are packed with people all the time. It's just one of those businesses that, people gravitate toward, especially in a pandemic, especially when you need a lot of, cheap, simple items, and things like that. And I guess the one area where I would counter, having been into a few of these stores over the last number of months, I would say there is a fair bit of name brand CPG stuff in there, but I would say that's primarily from the perspective of, confections, candy, chips, beverages that are available, things like that, and to some extent, sort of paper products like toilet paper and things like that. You will see, a fair number of name brand, cleaning products, things like that as well. I think there's a lot of other things that are just sort of generic, their own, sort of no name type stuff as well. But there is some opportunity there. And I think for me, the bigger play here is likely to be on the mobile app side of what they do, in terms of, the user base there and being able to present, offers or, things while people are physically on site or in store. And, sort of presenting, CPGs the opportunity to engage, and buy audience in that context, I think, is interesting. Many years ago, we, from an LBMA point of view, we talked about this idea of merchants like this, going even a step further, which was, at that time we were talking a lot about beacon networks and things like that. And if you could understand exactly where somebody is in the store, what aisle they're in, or they're standing in front of the, paper products section right now, that's, and you made that sort of awareness available to your media network, through your media network to the brand. And now that brand could present an offer for, Charmin, or whatever, while you're standing there, that becomes really powerful and really interesting, I think. So I think there's opportunities here to grow this type of thing. And I don't know a lot about Aki Technologies or Swiftly either, so I'll do some digging into that and kind of seeing what the capabilities are. But I think it speaks to a broader trend of retailers with large footprints of stores and locations getting into the media business, and finding new revenue beyond just the products they actually carry in the stores, which, margins being pushed down all the time. So,
Yep.
Yeah. All right, second story. Verizon has been in the news. They've launched a new service called Hyper Precision Location Service, Real-Time Kinematics. So basically what they're saying is this is all about providing a greater level of accuracy on location services than GPS does. So they say typical GPS is between 3 and 9 meters of accuracy. They're talking about centimeter level accuracy here, which has lots of implications for mapping and robotics and manufacturing and lots of other industries. And so, I think as a conceptual discussion, I will say absolutely, the more accurate you can be, the better. Many of these industries rely on high precision data, have had to do so with a lot of indoor technologies combined with outdoor technologies. Some of that micro location type of stuff, whether that's beacon technology or magnetics or smart lighting systems or other kinds of ways to get to that level of accuracy, or using RFID or other things for tracking equipment or those types of things. So I think if there's a way to sort of power that through the 5G network or those types of things that Verizon's involved in, I think that it may become more accessible and may become sort of easier to deploy for a lot of these types of businesses. And so that's where I see the real opportunity here. There's no question the accuracy makes sense. That being said, contrasting as they do in their announcement here to the failing of GPS being, so sort of, 3 to 9 meters there. The reality is the new GPS systems that are being deployed right now are, much, much more accurate than that, right? We've talked about this just recently on the show a few months back. They can also get now to, 1 foot accuracy and things like that in many, many cases or less. And so I think that, the technologies are overall, all these technologies are just getting better, faster, more accurate. Um, and there is opportunity for that, and there is demand for that type of accuracy. So I think this is a good time, a good opportunity for Verizon to kind of jump on board of this. And I think too, depending on how you position this to some of the stuff we've been talking about a lot about, the privacy changes and IDFAs and all of that, one of the industries that I think is going to be able to step in and fill some of the gap left by the app SDK world that's sort of abandoning quickly because they can't get easy access to location data, is the mobile operators themselves, right? Stepping in and making cell tower data more accessible and more available. It still needs protections. It still needs privacy, wrapped around that. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And so they're delivering this, out as a service, as a software as a service type of platform. They say that the HPL can be accessed and managed through a user API and the ThingSpace IoT management platform. So there's APIs there, and there's ways to sort of quickly engage with what they built here. So I think it's interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're probably following suit for what Vodafone's doing in some way, shape, or form, right? We talked about that, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
So getting that hyper precise location, we know that there's great technology, opportunities for that. I would say, however, with Verizon Media, it makes you wonder like what portion of this data is going to be available for media serving, right? So from an advertising perspective, how much of that in real time are they going to be making available through their network for media, for ad serving, and does this give them like a leg up in any sort of way? So it's interesting to me. That line I don't think has been spelled out yet, but we'll just kind of stay tuned and see what we hear from Verizon Media over the, next bit of this year, right?
For sure, for sure. And I think like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunity for this. Um, and I think one of the interesting things for me, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, is I think as we come out of this pandemic and the economy starts to recover, there is a lot of stimulus money being thrown around by governments across all countries right now. And I think there are opportunities for certain industries in particular to kind of take some of that money and retool and bring new technology to bear into what they do. And so there may be opportunities for companies like Verizon to benefit from that with a service like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of on another topic that's similar, but not the same as, we're talking about privacy implications, identity, graphs and maybe the demise of, but we have a new release of a new identity graph platform. It's OMNA, OMNA from Stirista. And this is interesting. So, they are touting, now this is a smaller company. I have not heard a lot of them. I've heard the name before, but I haven't heard much about them in the space. And they are touting that they're utilizing all of these real-time transactions, billions of transactions in real time to form this identity graph that's enabling marketers obviously to have access to, they're saying, hundreds of identifiers across millions of online, offline, social, and household personas. Now they're basing this on an IP graph. So, rich dynamic IP data of 90 million households. I'm assuming that's a US number, and a device graph, which is connecting more than a billion connected devices, and then a location graph that has this, perpetually updated real-time location, intent, and movement data. So, my question is like, where are they getting this data from? How is a smaller company like this gathering all of these things? Is this maybe better than it seems? So most traditional most of the traditional household or identity graphs that are available right now are really relying on cookies and mobile ad IDs, where it looks like they're taking, a different approach as those types of graphs are maybe phasing out or just having to pivot in their approach. And, I think that the IP is one way to go about it. It's not necessarily one-to-one, right? But you've got like a household mapping. You can get an idea of the different devices there, behavior of those devices to some extent to when you are able to capture that data. But they're really pushing us more towards like a CTV or OTT opportunity, which is also interesting with, where I am in the space now. But they're saying that like streaming's continuing to rise, linear television is declining in terms of that ad spend. And so this, because obviously OTT, CTV are running across an IP address, that makes it a potential fit there. I can see that because typically, those IP addresses likely are a little more static than dynamic, such as mobile IP addresses. So to me, this is interesting. I think that it's definitely more of a probabilistic type of an identity graph and an approach and that methodology versus it being deterministic and one-to-one, like a lot of the cookie or made data has been in the past. But I don't think it's a terrible shot at things. Where I think that they're going to run into problems is obviously just, data privacy legislation. IP address in many areas is still deemed PII. And, there's obviously we've got CCPA. There's a lot of other ones that are, coming across the countries and states as well. So, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this and see if other identity graph providers maybe pivot to this approach, or if this just is not, it's not close enough to be accurate. I don't know, but we will see.
Yeah, I like you. I don't know a ton about the company. I know they've been around for a while. I've seen the name, in passing a number of times over the years. Like I did a little bit of digging as you were talking, and kind of realized that where I kind of knew the company from was from sort of their email product, and so they have a well-known solution in the marketplace for sort of email list management and cleansing and verification and all that type of stuff. And so I think coming from that kind of a heritage into something that they're bringing here with the identity graph and the location data all coming together, it makes sense. It's not unlike if you think about the origins of companies like Factual or companies like that in terms of how they came to be and sort of born out of the the old Yellow Pages directory community, right? And we've seen a lot of companies sort of be birthed out of that world and have tried to build robust digital offerings. I'm with you. I think there are a lot of challenges on the privacy side. We talk about it almost every week on this show about where our industry is going from especially on the location data side. But I think sort of matching that up with IP data. Obviously, you come from years in working in the IP data world and know it better than I do. But I would say that I think it's a solid approach. It's a good attempt, and I think that there's something here right now. Whether or not they're going to be able to build a name for themselves in this segment, or they're going to get swallowed by behemoths like Facebook and others trying to come in and say here's our play on this. I don't know, right? And I think there's also, it seems from talking to people that I know on the regulatory side, there's new rules coming, not just privacy stuff, but much more controls around the collection of the data and the sort of taxation of this kind of data and on these companies and things like that. So I think there are a lot of potential limiting factors here. But that being said, they've been around for a while. They probably have a nice robust customer base that they can build upon and basically offer this product to, right? So I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's an approach that I want to watch, and a company that I'll need to pay more attention to for sure. All right, final story for this week. An interesting one here now. So, as we've been in this pandemic, I'm sure you have, as I have, been doing a lot more ordering of food, on delivery apps and services, DoorDash and Skip the Dishes up here in Canada, and Uber Eats, and all that, Grubhub and so on. And it's been a huge phenomenon, and a huge amount of growth for those types of platforms, over this time frame. One stat I saw in the article here said online order volume for food chains has increased 225% since the pandemic began. So massive, massive growth. And like anything that has massive, massive growth, as we've seen in our industry over the years, whether it's just location data or anything like this, there's always potential for fraud. And what's happening here is there's the emergence of a number of fake restaurants appearing on these platforms, on these online mobile ordering platforms, that are stealing business away from legitimate players. Positioning themselves, with names that belong to, other well-known brands and all kinds of things like this. And the two that they pointed out in particular, in this particular article, were in the San Francisco Chronicle from earlier this month, and two sushi restaurants in San Francisco using the names of legitimate businesses without permission to attract those customers. And so one is called the restaurant's called Chrome, but they open for takeout and delivery in their location, using the name Blowfish Sushi, which was a restaurant that closed back in December of last year. So they basically said, here's a well-known sushi brand. They're no longer in business. We're going to co-opt their name and use that on these mobile ordering platforms to try and win business based on somebody else's previous investments in building that brand. And then similarly, another one, so that one was on Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, and Postmates. And then another one in San Francisco called Wagyu Mafia, which is apparently, I don't know this brand, but apparently it's a well-renowned sandwich shop with locations in Hong Kong and Tokyo, and people know that brand name, and they're famous for a Wagyu sandwich that sells for $180. And again, like, they basically found this location, and set it up with that brand name and put it on there, and they're basically selling sandwiches and whatever else using somebody else's brand name on DoorDash and Grubhub. And anyways, both have been removed now from the platforms, and legal action is being taken, and potentially the brands who held those operated those companies and those names are going after them. But I think it just speaks to, there is always this this group out there that's going to try and take advantage of whatever the latest growth cycle is, and where the money's going. And obviously mobile food ordering is a huge thing at the moment. And I find it fascinating that people will go to these lengths, but people will do what they'll do, I guess, right, to try and get around the system and hack the system. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yes, I agree with you. It always seems to me that it's likely more work to hack the system than to actually just do real work and get an honest paycheck. But I don't know, maybe people just enjoy that. But my two thoughts are, one, I think there's a variety of, authentication capabilities for fraud prevention, in-app or online, that are available, and likely wherever these, fake locations are putting their business, whether that's DoorDash or Uber Eats or whoever, that they could likely build it themselves, or they could easily just embed some extra authentication. There's a good opportunity for that. So maybe if you're in that business, reach out to one of those and see who's doing this. And, maybe it's a good business opportunity. And, as a consumer, do your homework, make sure these places are still in business before you order. You don't want to not get your $180 sandwich. So
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, first of all, that somebody's ordering that, through a mobile app, to me. But hey, people will do what they'll do, I guess. And yeah, but this kind of fraud is going to be out there, right? And I think we're going to see a lot more of this type of thing before controls are put in place and technology is used to curtail this. I think there's just so much opportunity. The systems are ripe for this type of hijacking. So an interesting story.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's it. That's our show for this week. You've been listening to episode number 513 of Location Weekly. We thank you, as always, for your time. We appreciate it. Please give us some love on the social media platforms, that are out there. We're on all of them, and or whatever podcast platform you're consuming this on. And if you have story ideas, reach out. We'll be back next week with another show, of course. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Oh, and one last thing to point out. For those of you who are on Clubhouse, the LBMA is hosting a new series that starts this Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, called Retail Local Conversations on Clubhouse. Join us there. And if you're not on Clubhouse yet and you want to join us, reach out to me and we can set you up with an invite to get on board. So 2 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, that's the 22nd of April on Clubhouse. All right, everybody, have a great week. Bye.
Bye.